The life of a stepchild and step-parent.
That sounds like a Pokemon evolution.
Nani?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
I'm Ranuma.
And I'm Iz.
And welcome to the rnipodcast. What's going on, guys? Today, we are joined by a very special guest. Drum roll, please.
Humberto Ortiz.
What's going on?
I wasn't ready for that intro.
He's like, that's why I gave you a little drum roll. It's all good.
What's up, man? How are you today?
Doing good. Just been relaxing all day for Labor Day. Nothing too crazy today.
Yes.
Everybody relaxing today.
I know. Now with the this whole California fire weather out here in Vegas, it's kind of pretty bad.
You give us an overcast. I mean,
Gosh.
even though it blocked the sun, it's still over 113 degrees.
Right.
Yeah. Jeez. Got to put on our mask with like a tank top. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's been crazy hot this year.
Oh, yeah. So, today we're going to be talking about the life as a stepchild and a step-parent. I believe some of you may know that I'm a step-parent and is over here.
I'm a stepchild.
That's right. And the one that is joining us is actually both. So
he's a hybrid.
I'm actually surprisingly both.
So we thought it would be kind of interesting to hear, we're hearing both sides of the story, but then if we get one person that can talk about it and their experience, that'd be a little, be pretty interesting, I don't know a lot of stepchild raising up to be a step parent, besides you now. And it's, it's pretty, I don't know, right nowadays it's starting to be a little uncommon, so.
Yeah, I am seeing a lot more stuff, not really
common, I should say, sorry.
Yeah, I am seeing a lot more stuff where it's not really like stepchildren, but it's more like adopting rather than actually.
Yeah, that's a huge trend. That's a huge trend on YouTube too.
Yeah.
So it makes me cry every time.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like, it's like, they'll be like 20 years old, the girl or the son will be like 20 years old asking their stepfather or mother to adopt them. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Could you give us a little background about, growing up as a stepchild and, becoming a step parent?
Yeah. So I was basically a stepchild from half of my life, I'd say. I am 22 now. So basically, since I was 11, I was a stepchild. Both my biological parents were Hispanic. Then obviously they got divorced. My mom married in a Caucasian who just went to work with her, obviously. And yeah, they basically just hit it off right away, and he moved in immediately. We don't really see each other as like stepchild and stepdad ourselves. We kind of just see each other as friends or like roommates who live together. Just because I was already trying to be a teenager, and I knew who my dad was, and I still spent time with him. It was more like roommates with my stepdad. And kind of like the difference in the dynamic with that and me and my stepdaughter is 3 years old now. We've been living together for about 9 months now.
Okay.
Her biological dad calls her like every week or so, but I'm primarily the father figure, and she calls me dad most of the time. So it's like difference between like the age that I was when my stepdad was around, and then the age that my daughter is now when I'm around her, kind of thing. So even though I am both, it's like they're both like completely different relationships, and how the relationship is built is very different between the two, I feel like.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, from what you just said, it makes a lot of sense. Because for me, it was more like it was a short journey for me because I was a stepchild at 16.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like I was pretty much grown up already and didn't really need that father figure. And I was also had my little brother too. So even though he was younger, he's like 5-6 years younger than I am. He also probably feels the same way as I do because our biological father, he taught us a ton right before we hit like 7. You know what I mean? We had to.
Yeah.
He made sure. You know, we knew what was right or wrong and all the stuff that dads do. So and when my mom remarried, it was just kind of like a automatic respect. You know what I mean? You gotta don't overstep boundaries, even though someone new. But now it's just like, well, he family now. So I mean, so it didn't really feel any different. And it was, like I said, it was short. So it was like 16, 18, boom, like, we just
I
became
mean, like, he
close.
wasn't there to like teach you any important life lessons. He's
Yeah.
like, your dad was there, right?
Yeah.
There's also the thing where I'm kind of losing my train of thought. Sorry about that. But
No, you're good.
there's also that thing where I guess he knew that he wasn't going to replace my dad, especially because my dad was still around.
Mhm.
But he did want to be at least friends. And my mom did try to make sure it wasn't like he's your dad now. She made sure it was like he's my husband, but he's not your dad kind of thing. So she knew how to like separate the two. And she knew that even though I guess for lack of a better word, she hated my dad. She knew that I still loved him, and she would respect that I want my dad to be my dad and my stepdad to be my stepdad, kind of thing.
Right. That makes sense. Well, okay. So I have a question. So, what advice would you give someone who is going to be a stepchild or a step parent, like first a child, I guess, and as a parent?
It's gonna so like give advice to someone who is going to be a stepchild.
Yes.
Okay. I'd say it's gonna be definitely really weird at first, especially because it's not you who knows them well. It's gonna be your parent who knows them well. But do not be standoffish. Don't immediately hate them. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just there to make your parent happy, right, in their lives. Unless you obviously see some bad signs, right? But don't give them like. Don't scold them. Don't give it the cold shoulder immediately. Like, they care about your parent enough that they want to be part of your lives as well. So you got to respect their choice in wanting to be in your life as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's cool. Also, so for me, when my mom remarried, I found out that I gained 2 step siblings, another brother and another sister. And that was exciting for me. I was like, wait, am I still the oldest? And it turned out I was. That was even awesome because gotta listen to me. For you, did you gain any step siblings or?
Yeah. So with my mom marrying my stepdad, I got 4 step siblings from him. 2 girls, 2 boys. I got along fairly well with the boys because whenever they came over, they would play on my PlayStation. Actually, that's the reason why I got a second PlayStation myself. Then I actually don't interact with the girls that much, not even still, because personalities are very different.
Yeah.
But then when my dad actually married my stepmom, I don't really see her that much, so I don't consider her my stepmom.
Right.
But when he married, she has 2 daughters. They live in Mexico, so I don't see them. But when we did hang out, we hung out as like friends kind of thing. So, but that's because it's a lot more homely and you just get along with everyone more in a Mexican culture. So that's why we got along quicker that way. But so in total, I gained like 6 step siblings.
Dang!
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you the oldest?
Yeah, I was the oldest out of all of them.
And that's awesome.
And you're still in contact with all of them, right? Even though
I don't like being in contact with like extended family. I feel like if I visit my mom and they're around, or if it's their birthday or something, then I do come over. I do say hi to them and everything. But I don't usually stay in general contact with a lot of people myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been a stepdad for 3 years now. I know with their mom, she is now my fiance now. Popped that question last year around December, but when you go through life, it's really unexpected. You try to plan things out as much as you can. You tell yourself, like I'm gonna, go to school, get married, have kids, boom, that happily ever after.
Mhm.
And sometimes the happy ever after is not always like that. And it becomes to where, the higher being up above throws a huge wrench at you, and you're like, oh, dang, what is this? And you start to think at first reaction, like, oh man, I wasn't expecting this. Like, how she had, she got the 3 kids. And
Yeah.
now it's almost like, at first my reaction is like, I wasn't really planning, to be honest. And then all of a sudden I fell in love with her, and then I fell in love with the kids, and I fell madly and deeply in love with them just as much as with her, if that makes sense. It's kind of, it just happened that way. Because with me, I wanted to get them to, I wanted to get to know them more,
Yeah.
and knowing that when parents, they're always having the kids first, my thing was like, okay, let me get to know them. And if it doesn't work out, then it works out. It doesn't work out, But for her, it was like, this is actually pretty cool,
Mhm.
So I have a son now, and I have I got 2 daughters. They still visit their dad ever so often, like I would say like once or twice a month.
Yeah.
But it's not really to where he would get them on a routinely semi-monthly basis, as he
It's
should.
just kind of random.
Yeah, right out of nowhere. Like today or yesterday he had picked them up to go to his or to the kid's half brother's birthday, So it's pretty it's kind of like a jungle. Like it's all jumbled up. It's trying to keep up. But that they're always asking for their dad, and like earlier you said to be their father figure, and that's mainly what I'm still trying to be, even after 3 years. They don't call me dad, but sometimes they slip up to their friends or their relatives saying, yeah, my dad is taking me to the mall. I'm like, oh, snaps,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
I've heard that, I've heard that a couple of times. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
it's happening.
It's like, what's happening? Like, Paulina, hey, did you hear that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how was your reaction when she started to call you dad?
Well, she kind of did it naturally, just like how any child does it, because she was still learning how to speak when I started living with them, spending time with her. So it was kind of natural, but it still felt really nice that like she was calling me dad, or sometimes I hear her from her room yelling like, "Hey, dad, come here," and I'm like, well, I guess now I gotta go because if you don't mind me asking, though, yeah, if you don't mind me asking, like, how old are your stepkids?
All right, so the oldest one, she is 12.
Okay.
The next one down, 11. Next one down, 10. So the 2 older ones are my daughters. The youngest one is my son. Though my son is the one who I think I spent a lot with, only because when their real dad had, did his thing and decided to do his own path,
Mhm.
he didn't really get to hang out with him, with my son as much. But with him being able to comprehend, play video games now, we play Overwatch, we're able to connect. And I feel like I have more of a connection with my son than my daughters. With my 2 daughters, I'm still trying to work on it. And I know it just takes time,
Yeah, that's kind of exactly the situation that I was with my step siblings, where when Overwatch first came out, that's how I started playing with my stepbrothers. But with my sisters, I couldn't really connect with them in that sort of way, only with my stepbrothers.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, now it's like, the oldest one, she's all over TikTok. And so I am trying my absolute hardest to get on TikTok, but at the same time, I'm fighting myself because I always tell myself, let's just not go with, what's popular nowadays.
I'm telling you, just go on my profile. I mean, both of them follow me.
Yeah. Yeah. So both my 2 daughters follow him, so
we did a duet once.
Yeah. See, there you go. So, when Uncle is,
yeah. And has there because I know I probably won't run into this issue. There's a slight chance that I would, but has there ever been a chance or like a time where they just have gotten mad at you and they explicitly just said, "You're not my dad," and use that as an excuse?
That's a very good question. I for the whole 3 years I was with them or am with them, I haven't really got that. And it's funny because the very first month that I've actually met them, or the second month, the third month, I guess it's kind of bad to say, but it's almost like I'm waiting for it to happen.
Yeah,
it's weird,
Yeah, I feel the same way too. Like I'm just waiting for my daughter when she's like 12 or 13. She's like, "Oh, you're not my real dad," and slams the door on my face.
Like it's kind of sad to kind of expect that, but it's when you're talking about children, their emotions and thoughts are going all over the place, so with me it's kind of like, okay, I want to put in the back of my head that they may happen one day, and I want to prepare myself. I don't even know till this day what I would do when that time comes still. It's one of those things where it's in the back of my head, but then I don't look forward to it. I don't know if you came up with like a plan if she were to do that to you.
With me specifically, it's like, for me, I'm thinking like, I'm not your real dad, but I'm the one that literally raised you. I'm the one that's been taking care of you every day. So
yeah,
just do as I say.
It's like, I'm your father.
Yeah. Until you can pay the rent, you're going to do as I say.
I like that. Straightforward, right? Yeah. It's like straightforward. Under my roof, my terms.
Exactly.
So when it comes down to, this isn't actually on one of the questions that I'm going to ask, but it just popped into my head. But discipline, how would that go? Would she be the one,
So that is really hard. So this might go a little bit too deep, and you can stop me if it does. But in very Latin and Mexican culture specifically, and kind of like in my mom's family, usually there's a lot of physical discipline that goes on. It's kind of traditional there. It's kind of how everyone was raised. So that's how I was raised. And that's kind of the only thing that I really know how to be disciplined. I never really gotten to talk to. I mainly just gotten physically disciplined growing up. I've known growing up that I never want to do that to my own kids.
Yeah.
And sadly, like I hate saying this, but like there's some times where my daughter has really angered me a lot, where it has crossed my mind that like, sometimes she needs a good spanking kind of thing. But I don't do it, one, because like I know I don't want to hurt any of my kids at all. Like just for my whole life. And then two, it's like there's still like a gray area where like even if I thought that was okay, there's still a gray area about like, even though I raised her and I'm taking care of her, she's not legally my daughter. So, there could be some definite complications. And I had conversations with my girlfriend where, if I ever, lay a hand on her, like physically hurt her, the relationship's over, and that I completely understand.
Yeah.
So like I do my best to, not be like my mom and how she raised me. So like I have yelled at her. I have gotten upset with her, obviously, but it does get pretty hard with how I was raised and how I should be raising her, especially as like not legally my child.
Yeah, that's it's funny you bring that up because my fiance, who is also Mexican, so they know that side of that culture that you're talking about. As for me, I'm Filipino, and I grew up being disciplined that way as well. So when me and my fiance are having that little talk about being disciplined and stuff, I just said, stop right there. I'm not going to be doing any disciplining. I would be, telling them to do this and that. I would say I would yell at them, raise my voice and whatnot. But as far as like any physical contact, no. The only physical contact that they get from me is mainly a big high five or a hug or, anything like that. But as far as like anything offensive, it's like, no, that doesn't even happen. Because I'm like, kind of like you, I don't want to raise my kids the way I was raised, especially nowadays, they get CPS and anything, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it just goes a long way. And with discipline, it's a huge topic in the household, but I think we have that very on point now, to where she does most or all of the kind of like the Mexican culture kind of physical discipline, you know.
Yeah.
So she does that, and I'm over here saying, okay, well, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. So I'm more of like the wise individual of the house, telling them this is what's going to happen if this doesn't happen, or if that doesn't happen, or whatnot.
Yeah.
It becomes a little mentally exhausting sometimes, but
Yeah, for sure.
you know,
Especially with like with my daughter, like definitely starts acting up, and my
mhm,
girlfriend's at work. It can be mentally draining because I'm just kind of like, I have to sit here, kind of try to see what I can figure out without going too far, kind of thing. Because like I said, legally she's not mine. I kind of have to go with. I need to get my girlfriend's approval whenever I think, discipline will work
right,
with her, and then that's like waiting. I have to like wait for a text from her, or usually if she is like in the house while our daughter's acting up, then she'll discipline her. But usually, um, if I'm around and she's not, I just kind of have to wait until I get confirmation if whatever I do is okay on her terms, kind of thing.
hmm I think it's the same thing with me. It's kind of like, okay, well, so and so is not paying attention in class with the whole distance learning right now, all distracted and everything. What do you want me to do? You know?
Yeah.
So she's a phlebotomist, and so her hands are literally like tied up all the time. So we always have a conversation at the end of the day where she comes home, and I tell her, this is what happened, and this is what I think we should do. But what do you think we should do, and how can we come into an agreement of some form of kind of a discipline,
Yeah.
to make sure that they're paying attention in class or anything like that,
What about should you guys have children of your own? Like, do you
Uh,
discipline them different from
I,
your
I
stepchild?
so definitely, if in the future we do have children of our own, that's
Mhm.
biologically mine, I will definitely have a higher say in how I believe they should be disciplined.
Agree.
Um,
Yeah.
but I do want to try to raise them the same as I'm raising my daughter now, where
Yeah.
I'm not physical at all. I do raise my voice sometimes, but I never get physical like my mom did with me. So I know that I do want to raise them the same, but I know that biologically I will be able to have like a higher say in what I believe is the right way to discipline them in my
Right.
terms, kind of thing.
For sure.
Yeah, and I agree with Berto here. When it comes down to, say, if I had a biological daughter or son, with me, I mean, I got 3 kids right now. To me, it's almost like I'm not going to raise them differently as I did with them. I think they're at the age where it's so early that you can pick up where the dad had left off,
Yeah.
and then just go from there. But I think for you, how old did you say your daughter was again?
She just barely turned 3 last month.
3. So from there, it's almost like he has the advantage to where, because as the earlier or the younger you are, the more information you can absorb.
Yeah.
My 3 kids right now, they're a little bit older right now, but I feel like I can get through them most of the time.
Mhm.
And so if I were to have, or when I have a biological son or daughter, I would make sure that I would apply any kind of ways I've raised the 3 with them. So
Yeah.
Man,
that
you guys are
way,
awesome. Because, like, if I ever dated someone who had a child, like, I wouldn't want to discipline them the same way I would my biological one. I just feel bad
yeah,
if the stepchild should feel like kind of envious to be like,
yeah,
they're like, why do
Yeah.
you yell at him like
yeah.
that and not me? And like, well,
And it does run through my head a lot. Like like let's say, okay, my son, my actual son, is 4 years old, and then they're over there saying, you bought them this, you got them that, you're doing this to him that you'd never done to me, like
Oh
stuff
no,
like that.
yeah. Spoiling is different. I would spoil them the same. Discipline would be
Well, I
different.
mean, the thing is, like that's gonna happen in I think any family. That's
Yeah.
what it was in my family, where I feel like my mom spoiled. My parents spoiled my brother with everything, and we were both biological. So I think it's like it doesn't matter whether it's step siblings or biological. It's usually going to happen where the youngest one is going to get spoiled, pretty much.
Very true. Very true. My
and-
sister.
Actually, I was spoiled. My brother wasn't.
What?
And my younger brother wasn't.
Wow.
But I got the licks in. I mean, I got destroyed as a child, and I grew up to be the kind of person I am today.
And yeah, so I did too, and I forgave my mom in the times that she went extreme in the discipline. There have been times where I felt like, my God, I have been a crappy child. I did deserve those.
Oh yeah, I was hard headed. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, same.
So there's definitely that stuff that they also got to learn, but there's also the weird kind of conflicting issue. Let's say their biological dad buys them a cell phone. You don't really have a right in taking that away from them because you're not paying for it, right? But if your biological son, has their cell phone, you can take it away because you're paying for it. But if someone else pays for it, you just don't really have that right there anymore.
Yep, and that is why I actually bought the 3 kids their cell phones, and I think nowadays they need it.
True.
With the school and everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like, one of them, the youngest, is in a different school than the 2. So having them have their own little cell phones, it's more of like a safety concern or issue.
Yeah, especially now in 2020, it's pretty scary out there.
Oh, true.
Like back then, we didn't have cell phones, and
we had bikes.
Our
We
parents
had
didn't
paper
care where
cups.
we were.
We had paper cups and string.
Paper cups and string.
Hello. Man.
Got the nod on that one.
The note passing in school.
Oh yeah, where you fold it up in a certain way. You play football with it. That's our texting.
My mom's window if I need her attention. That's how.
So, what are some similar things that you found as a stepchild that you would notice now as a step parent?
Definitely the lack of control that I would get. I noticed.
Yeah.
Because I know my stepdad. There have been times where I've been a crappy child, and my mom's been upset with me, but he can't really do anything. He just kind of has to step off from that. And then with my daughter, it's like there's been times where she's acting up, but there's times where I get upset with her, but I can't do anything. I just got to wait until my girlfriend gets home when I got to explain what went on. So there's definitely that lack of control that went on. I think that's the only thing I can really think of, just because, like I said earlier, they were both experiences are very different. Where I was very late in my childhood when I got a stepdad, but then my daughter here's very early in her child development, when I'm taking her place or taking the place of her father figure.
Yeah, because how old were you when he stepped in?
It was around 11 or 12, beginning of middle school is when it happened.
Okay, so it's very similar to my end, because I met them 3 years ago and they were still in elementary school, but one of them was going to middle school. So
yeah, so it's just kind of 2 very different experiences, and as well as I know my dad. I have a good relationship with my dad, but she doesn't know her biological dad other than the video calls that happen maybe once every 1 or 2 weeks kind of thing.
Okay. Another question that popped up: How did you feel when you met her biological dad?
I actually never met him yet. He lives he lives in Washington.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, it was when my girlfriend was living in Oregon, but that's her story to tell, so I'm not going to explain it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so he lives in Washington, so they only do video calls, so I never met him. I know that my girlfriend is trying her best to make sure he's not really in the picture, just because she doesn't want him to be around her.
Yeah.
But so I never met him. As far as from the stuff that I've seen and the stuff that I've heard him like talking about in video calls and stuff. I wouldn't want him near her either. I'd probably do my best to protect her, even though she's not legally mine. I mean, she's still the one that I care for, and she's my baby. So
The guardian.
Yeah.
The guardian. So no, I see what you mean. I think it's pretty different when the biological dad still lives in the same city, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
And after 3 years, I've actually met him on accident.
Oh, yeah?
Crazy story. Went to
Whoops.
this. It was one of those things. So we were out to celebrate us buying a house because we just purchased a house about a couple weeks ago, which is why this whole thing took a while. We went to a Mexican seafood restaurant, and then the youngest saw, his dad come in, and then he left, and I'm like, what are the chances of that? We were on our way out. We took some time, like 5 to 6, 7 minutes, just sitting in the restaurant just so he can leave. Well, we walked out, and the oldest one was able to spot out her dad in the car and was yelling for her dad. And he did a U-turn, came by, and I was like still walking across the street or the parking lot to go to the truck. And right there, he was saying hi to the kids, and then he looked at me. He goes, "Hi, I'm so and so," and I was like, "I'm Randolph," and then that was it right there.
Oh,
I did a U-turn, went back to the truck
USA
because
special.
yeah,
Dang.
because I wasn't planning on introducing myself. I wasn't, like, seriously, and he came around and he did that, and I just wanted to get to the car, honestly.
Yeah.
So it was we went to the truck and we were just looking at each other like, did that just happen? I'm like, I guess it did. And everybody, the kids were asking, are you okay? Like, how did you feel now that you met our dad? I'm like, I thought he'd be taller. That's the only reaction that I got, honestly. That's the only reaction that I got. I thought he'd be taller, and then we just went on doing our errands and stuff, and that was it. And the youngest one, Angel, he the reason why he came up to me is because the youngest one was actually behind me. So I was literally between my son and his dad. And it's weird because I never put myself in that position or that situation to where that would happen. But he was literally like right there. And then he was the dad was like on that side. I'm like, oh geez, here we go. So that was a little awkward to say the least, But
Well, it won't be awkward anymore. Shit.
yeah, so
That part is done.
that is done. And like how your girlfriend is, how she tries to kind of have her out of the picture, kind of have him out the picture. She's doing the same thing, but it's kind of hard when the kids are asking for the dad,
Yeah, and she can't really stop it, especially if there's some sort of like custody agreement sort of thing. He has the right to see his kids as much as she does. It's just, it doesn't matter how much she doesn't like it. It's just she can't stop it.
Yeah. So knowing what you know now, do you feel like you have the advantage, or did you feel like you had the advantage growing up as a stepchild? I think the question is, when you're growing up as a stepchild, do you have the advantage in teaching your stepchild or your daughter, like in general? Like I can relate to you when she grows up after she turns like middle school years. Like you can tell her like when I grew up, talk story and stuff like that. Do you feel like you have that advantage?
I would say definitely, yeah. Mainly in the aspect where I know that we're not gonna keep it a secret that she's biologically not mine. So if whenever that time comes and she's still kind of confused about it or she hasn't come to terms with it, I can definitely like be there to relate with her, saying like, hey, I know how it is being with a step parent, and I know that I'm not biologically your dad, but I'm here to take care of you, and I'm here because I love you.
Right.
So I at least I have that relatable aspect with her whenever she comes to terms with, how her raising has become. So I can kind of go with the right approach instead of just saying like, oh no, I'm your dad. It doesn't matter whatever he says. I can just be like, well, yeah, there's complications, but I'm here to walk you through it, just like how I had to go through it growing up.
No, that's I think that's a huge advantage because then, because she's the only child too, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like she can definitely use your support, because she'll be like, where's my dad or whatever, or how she would start. I feel like she's gonna come to a point where she's gonna start questioning a lot of things, and you're gonna be able to just swoop in and fulfill that support for her and tell her this is what happened, or whatever you want to throw down, I feel like you have that advantage because you yourself is, you were also a stepchild,
Mm-hmm.
so you can just tell them like, hey, yeah, don't worry. I've been in that position before, I mean, that's what I did with my kids right now. Growing up, I did have an older sibling, so I know what it's like to be the youngest. And then my little sister came about, so I was the youngest, or the middle child. And sadly, my older brother had passed away, so I had to take on that role as the eldest now. So it's weird because I have 3 children, so youngest, middle, and oldest. So the only way I'm able to relate to them is say I was like that before, and as the youngest, this would happen, and so on.
Oh yeah, you got all 3.
Yeah, it's kind of like
teach him how to fill in your shoes, kind of thing.
Yeah, basically.
That's cool.
Yeah.
For me and my brother, my mom would always tell me that because we had each other, it was a lot easier should we be separated from our biological father.
Yeah.
Because that for mom, she said it was easier for us that way to cope and for the change. It wasn't different. It wasn't like a completely different atmosphere. And so.
All right.
I want to thank you so much, Humberto. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for responding to the post.
Yes.
It was definitely a lot of fun. Very interesting topic, especially to talk about.
Yeah. I don't know how many times or we had this kind of topic being thrown out there,
Yeah. True.
So, but we thank you for coming in and
also we know that you have your social plugs and all that stuff. So go ahead and give our listeners the info on where to find you.
Yeah. So basically, I do have a podcast myself. It's called the Lucid Streamers Podcast. It's where we talk about basically anything gaming or streaming related. Because I used to be a Twitch streamer, and my co-host, one of my good friends, is a Twitch streamer. So that's where we kind of talk about that stuff. Like I said, Lucid Streamers Podcast. Then I am now starting a YouTube channel under the name Hallucidus. That is HALLUCIDUS. I'm still figuring out my niche there, but I am starting to put out content there as well. So that's kind of like where you can find me on social media, and wherever you find me there, you can find my other social media as well.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, man. In the next episode, we'll be talking about the most notable deaths of 2020. Thank you to White Wong Media, and don't forget to like us on Facebook.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment on YouTube. All the links are down below. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next time.